Hey everyone, so here comes my post AOW war video. Sorry if there's a lot of background interference. I'm currently sitting at the hospital waiting for an x-ray to be done on my ankle. This past weekend of AOW was very frustrating towards many factions, especially for the ones that didn't end up qualifying for TOC because we did not have any information on how qualifications would be done. There are many long wait times and queue times, and matchmaking times, especially in some of the deader regions. Add in how fast the meta has been changing at an unprecedented pace, it becomes difficult for any player to adapt to the current meta and devise both an attack and defending strategy without shelling out a ton of money. I ended up having to try a variety of different teams this weekend other than my normal 3 teams, my consistent team, my turn 1 confused team, and my bleed team. I ended up adding a blue attack team specifically because of the towers as well as the number of red tunes that have been released as of late. I tried a variety of different teams and I also ended up settling on a green melee team because of a stun on attack as well as my newly ascended 6-star green Disarm Lily, who has the ability to both gain AP towards my team as well as remove defensive buffs from the opponent's team when she rushes. She also has a very relevant active skill, being able to stun and apply 100% heal reduction to one enemy for multiple turns. I was also able to run my 6-star Ivanova, who was very useful because of her Guardian 2 ability. Guardian 2 and Guardian itself is able to block maim damage, normal damage, payback, and the new Bide ability. I also ended up running my 6-star Shiva because Cutthroat was enhanced recently, so now if a tune has a debilitating status effect, she can do 50% more damage on a basic attack. Add in she has Stun Claws, a Confused Rush that targets one specific enemy and then can apply Confused up to 2 other opponents, and an active stun. The last spot is a flex spot, and I can run a command tune, a human shield, a tune like Kate for her attack up, focus, as well as her 2-turn healing factor. There's just a lot of different options for this last spot, and it's based on what the opponent is running that will help me decide. It's been a long time since I've run a melee attack team, but I found it to be quite effective. I haven't been able to run one since I didn't have a 6-star leader that gave a huge bonus to AP and plus 40 attack when attacking. Unfortunately, Jackson doesn't fit this bill either, only having a very large bonus to AP when attacking. But he is definitely an upgrade to my 5-star limited edition Negan, especially having an active skill that can recover both stun and taunt. The blue team that I designed both has a disarm tune, being Louis, and also doesn't have a disarm tune, being the 6-star Maggie that has fire starter ability, because her rush can give focus to the entire team as well as do a burn damage. So jumping back a bit to why I think Scopely did not release the information for TOC qualifications is because if we knew how qualifications worked, that it was done by region and overall points instead of by faction, then I feel like people would have tried to fudge the numbers. By this I mean people would have dropped defense the whole time during war in order to show a lot of points in a possibly dead region. But again, by Scopely not releasing information based on how TOC qualifications have been done, people were not able to make a good decision that was best for them and their faction. Some regions had an influx of larger factions move in, which caused the people native to that region to move out. If the goal was to increase the activity levels in those 40 regions in order to consolidate the player base, I think it was very poorly done because of a lack of communication from Scopely to the players. This Tournament of Champions is locking regions down for 8 weeks, which is a huge amount of time in this game. There's a lot of drama and issues that could arise in various regions, as well as different regions just dying out due to the lack of participation and excitement from being stuck in one area that may not satisfy all their needs. A lot of factions ended up moving to dead regions because they thought that they would need to qualify to a Tournament of Champions by their score alone, But with it being done by each region and overall points, in some ways it really messes up those factions, and factions that should have made it are now unable to advance due to the way that this event is run. The NCAA style tournament for Tournament of Champions, I think, was not well thought out. There are a lot of issues revolving around this style. Different regions are talking about making super factions so that only, quote, the best of the best end up playing in the tournament, and that way they'll ensure a win. Other ideas that are being tossed around include only one faction warring for a region. That way they match up with the number one faction of the other group, but as well as all the factions that are lower than them. So they may match up with the number one faction once, and then get 7 easier matches and score lots of points in order to create a big margin. Another idea that's being thrown around is people using those level 15 minis in other regions in order to become feeder factions towards your region. It's a tactic that was used in the first cross-regional war, where it was one region versus another region. So people would make a faction in the other region and queue for war, and whenever you matched them, you ended up getting a lot of easy points. Another idea that I heard was one faction going into a war at the start, and if they win, no one else for that region queues the whole weekend. For the whole 24 hours. Other tactics include factions holding other factions during war, preventing them from warring and scoring big points on lower level factions. So these are just a few examples of some of the less savory techniques that I heard that other regions have been thinking about doing. Personally, I'm not a big fan of these ideas. I would rather see the right region move on based on overall activity and smart planning, strategizing, and fair play. But I guess in the end, if Scopely wanted to prevent this, they would have, and we just have to adapt to whatever is given to us. Again, I'm not sure what my region is going to end up doing if things go left, right, around, just not the way we want it to go. But it's something that we are discussing, as I'm sure every other region is as well. Still on the topic of TOC, I'm curious as to how the scaling of rewards will work, for milestones at least. Because if we got 1 GPS from reaching 3 million points in level up, are we going to get 1.15 GPSs? Or will it round up kind of like how AP rounds up if it's a fraction of a number or a decimal? I think that TOC really needs to be addressed. I think there needs to be some changes made so that things are not, quote, rigged in a way that factions or regions get through that, well, in my opinion, shouldn't. But others are also being excluded just based on lack of information. I can't see Scopely being able to patch all the holes that could make TOC very uneven and unfair, but I'm ready to be surprised. I am waiting for it, and I hope that they can come up with some solution so that this event doesn't end up being, a fail. If you can think of any other unsavory or savory techniques that you and your region might be implementing during TOC, feel free to share them in the comment section below. I'm very interested to see what others have come up with. Now, going back to this all-out war, I found it to be very slow and dry. We ended up matching the same faction about 5 or 6 times in a row. We probably had a third of our matches with said faction, and then the other matches that we had, we would just keep looping with some factions because we would get in the same cycle, and that's not fun for either us or the other faction, whether it's a win or a loss. And for this war, I had a lot of wins, some losses, and some matches where I just didn't care enough. I mostly warred for my faction, but I took it a little easy this past weekend because I had a bit going on in real life, and always, always, always put real life first. This past AOW did help with all the mystery crates being opened because those counted as war crates. It also helped with the other event mission where you had to do a certain number of war matches as a faction in order to complete it. We are still a ways away from completing the whole thing, but with TOC and then cross-regional war in between, it should help put us over the top. I don't really know how to project when that will be, but it should happen. In order to supplement some of your war matches, you can also scout because that will count towards war matches done. And when you scout, if you win, you have a chance of getting raid cans dropping, which can be very useful, especially for people who are lacking in them and don't come in second place in war very much. Scouting, as I've mentioned before, can also help with league placement as you actually get more trophies than you do if you do an actual raid. Another method of getting war matches in is by taking towers or by not taking towers, however you want to interpret that. Now I know I'm really going all over the place with this video. Like the next thing I'm going to mention again is the Pathways event missions and how we haven't even had a Walker Hordes event, yet somehow we're expected to get, I think, 132 matches in. And I would say having 2 events would be ideal because a lot of people don't enjoy the event and it takes about 2 hours for your energy to be completely recovered, and people are not going to wake up every 2 hours in order to complete a horde event. It will be interesting to see if matching against yourself and testing your defense counts towards horde matches or not, and if it does, then it will kind of be like Survival Road where you do your daily one but you flee, or doing friendly raids. In my opinion, the most challenging event mission for Pathways is the territory one as a faction. Realistically, you would need all 30 members in your faction to hit territories 20 times a day in order to get 18,000 wins, and I think you only need 16,500, and I say only, except it's still a huge number. I've been maximizing my territory hits by attacking already walkered territories that only have 3 waves of walkers in order to maximize both my time and my energy. But even when doing this, there's a lot of times where the territory crashes on me, so I lose an energy and I don't get credit for actually attacking the territory and winning it. So these are kind of my all-around thoughts with All Out War and TOC as well as the Pathway missions. Thank you again for tuning into my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. If there's anything else you'd like to see me video specifically and talk about, feel free to leave that in the comment section below or line me at linkesus with a period at the end. And for those of you in TOC, I hope to match you very soon.